I'd like to call the Finance, Audit, Tendering and Administration Committee Wednesday, April 10th to order. Number one is called to order. Just like to make a comment just on our budget, our 2024-25 budget was recently passed, and just wanted to recognize all the effort on behalf of the staff and the council and the worker bees in the financial side of City Hall here and making that happen. There was, we changed our process this year a little bit. We have new CFO, Danny Jenkins, on board, who again, with Betty French, our finance manager, who's with us today, has another, has a year under her belt. So, but on the budget, senior counsel that was a finance role prior to me said anytime you can pass a budget that doesn't have a tax rate increase on the property side, it's maybe a good budget. So I'd like to think that's the case. I know that when you say that, some people say, yeah, your tax rates increase still because of the property assessment thing, which is driven by the province, and I recognize that. But at the end of the day, there's two pieces. There's a tax rate piece, and there's the assessment piece that's driven by the province. But so to delineate, there was no tax rate increase on the city end. So again, thank the committee here too for for their time. There were some differences on the vote of support of the budget, but that's how these things go, I guess, sometimes. So,
Chair, just on the process, I know it was different this year because it was wide open, but we didn't get unanimous vote on it, which is that happens. But I'm just wondering if there was any issues with the process. Like, I had some issues with the process in terms of, and I think it was expressed by one councillor in particular from Ward 4, that in the past we've always gone through the committees, and the committees would make recommendations up to finance, and then we'd deal with it as a whole. So I don't know, Councillor Duran, if that was one of your concerns about the process, but for me it was, and I think we have to revisit that process, because the purpose of standing committees is not just to take care of resolutions or motions to allow for a parkland to be designated for a soccer field, or public works to allow for a new street to be built, or new ATPs, MUPPs. But it also takes into consideration the financial part of it, because as I've said many times, my budget is my Bible, because I'm always going back to it. So hopefully we will have some discussions going forward, Mr. Chair, on how we do it in the future. And one point I want to do, I do want to make, Betty and Dan, is that capital has to be separate from operation. We have to do it earlier, because we're going to find out we may be we may be late getting to the start line to get those tenders tendered on, or some bids, because so late in the season. Anyways, Councillor Duran, I don't know if that's where you're coming from, but I know we did have discussions about the rate increase of the water and wastewater. We were told it was a $500,000 surplus last year, $500,000 forecasted surplus for this year. Those numbers didn't add up when we really looked at the real numbers. Anyways, I just pass it on.
thank you, Mayor Brown. I'm not sure which councillor had.
Councillor Duran can go first. I can go. I appreciate maybe looking at it separately earlier, but I quite liked how we did the budget this year. I felt that every councillor was able to hear the information, and it did provide for discussion. I think the way we've done the budget in the past, I don't think it's a full council discussion, it's a full council decision, and I appreciate that's why we have standing committees, and that's what the job is, but I don't think it necessarily needs to come through this committee to get to that committee to have the same conversation over and over again. I thought it was well done. I felt that I learned by listening to other councillors point out questions, that things maybe I wouldn't have thought of. I quite liked the way the budget was done.
So, Councillor McCabe, are you saying broadly that you kind of support or like the idea of doing the capital and operating together in tandem? Is that generally what you're saying?
I think we can start the process a little earlier, and I think at the end of the day, we have to look at what's coming in, what's going out, and where we're at. And I did think it went well. I really liked the process, the way the budget went this year. I felt like, for me, I understood better. I felt that it was clear, and yeah, I liked it.
Thank you. Councillor Drung.
Well, I'm directly the opposite. I agree with the mayor. We have to do the budget separately, more input from councillors on this. I think a lot of the direction came from senior management, where when it came to council to make the decision, you had X or Y decisions to make, rather than looking at the whole picture and just saying, okay, you know what, we should try this project and maybe we'll not do this project. I just felt that, when it came time to make a decision, the decisions were already made. And, we didn't get the opportunity to debate, for the last 10 years, you could take a whole day or 2 days and debate every decision that's going to be made, and then that way you would have more input. So that's the reason I didn't support it.
So, Councillor Drung, are you, my understanding you to say you feel council should be more involved in the operations of prioritizing projects and being the lead on that versus coming from staff that I'm thinking are in the role to kind of give us that advice? Or I'm just, again, you've been at this table longer than I have.
Yeah, and that's the question. I'm not saying, listen, I want to do a street on Maple Avenue rather than what senior management or staff might want to say. They might want to do a different street. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, okay, this is the projects that are going forward this year. There's 20 of them. So let's sit down as a council and decide, maybe we can cut a big one and do, a whole lot of other ones. So that's a political decision or a council decision that, for the best bang for the buck, or to help the most amount of people, I think the councillors should have a say in that, rather than coming to the table and saying, listen, senior management dropped these, we're not going this way, and then we're left to sit there and say, okay, yeah, I agree or I don't agree. I think, in previous years, we sat down, council decided, these are the line items that we're going to go ahead with. We voted. There's 10 councillors here and the mayor. We voted which way we're going to go. I'm not saying that my idea is doing a bigger sewer project and that I don't know of. And staff would know the best thing if it was, a priority. But just let us see the whole thing instead of parts. That's my idea. We get a budget, we look at, go line item to line item, saying, okay, we vote on this, we don't. And then at the end of the day, I didn't know what we did at the very end. We passed something and then we put a friendly amendment in and it turned around the other way. I'm thinking, what is going on here? We cut so many positions and then they came back and it was just a mess for me. So, that's the way I feel about it.
Thank you for sharing those comments, Councillor Drown. Councillor McCabe.
And I think that's what we need maybe some better clarification on, and I'm hoping through some onboarding we get there, because I know for years that's how it was done. And, it was almost the battle of who could speak the loudest and who was going to get the most people behind them to determine what projects and things were going to happen. Where my understanding now is that our role as councillors isn't to get into that operational perspective. It's more to determine, here's the money we can determine, and we trust that our management team, based on the criteria that we've developed, because that's our other role, whether, how do they determine what streets need to be done or what projects need to be done in order. Like, that's where their expertise come in. So for me to determine what positions at City Hall are most important and actually debate that, I don't run City Hall, or it's not my job. My job is to be financially responsible to the residents in the city of Charlottetown. And that's where I think we need to have some hash out. As a full council, Your Worship, I would love to see that opportunity, because I think it's taken an old way and a new way with the MGA and trying to figure out how that fits, because we're coming at it from different perspectives around how we're supposed to do things. We've had issues in the past where that's how it's happened. If we, we hear all the time, certain people got more and it's not fair and all of that, where if we just focus on the actual financial dollar and we have the right policies and processes in place, we should be able to eventually avoid that piece.
All right, thank you. Just to kind of move on, but I know on that, and I said, I think in my remarks, on the budget, it's a process that can continue to be improved. And I know there's, I guess this separation between governance and operations, and I guess that's got to be continued to be worked on. And anyway, that's we'll leave it at that for today and move on with my agenda. Thank you. Number 3, approval of agenda. Councillor Drong, thank you. Seconded by Councillor McCabe. Number 4, approval of the previous draft minutes. Are we good on the minutes?
Good.
Okay. Councillor Drong, seconded by Mayor Brown. Thank you. Number 5, business arising from the minutes. Is there any business arising from the minutes? None. Thank you. Item 6, discussions, reports. 6A, update on cybersecurity. Betty French, manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is just to bring an update to an item that was discussed in closed session back in January, and just to let the committee know that that issue has been resolved at no cost to the city. Yes, that was great news.
Great job, Betty.
Yeah, no, yeah, if, for sure. 6B, if we good, 6B, the community grant applications report. This, Betty and her team have prepared, a matrix here, recommendations. I guess I'm thinking maybe, the best way, just kind of start at the top and go through them. And, is that?
Yeah, I'm just, I think they're all done, are they not? Like, this is all within the budgeted amount, and is that where we're at? If I can.
Well, the recommendations, are before us here. I guess broadly speaking, we've allocated 400,000 in our budget this year for grant purposes. We've had requests. Those requests, I'm thinking. Pretty much them all are in the matrix that's in the package here, with the asks and the recommended amounts by finance and their team. Some of them are fully funded, some of them aren't, and that in lies, I guess, where the debate could be or questions could be, or 400. I think if we go to the matrix, there's whatever, there's some left in in that budget. So, Betty, why don't if you're good with this, maybe let's just go to it and go through them and quickly to.
Sure, we can just quickly go through each of the matrices. So in the document here, there's the amount that we paid in the last fiscal year, what the request was, and what our recommendation is after going through the matrix. There are a number of new requests that we haven't had in the past. So the first one we have there is the Big Brothers Big Sisters. This is a new request. We didn't have a request from them last year.
Excuse me, just, excuse me. Yeah, if there's any, I'm conflicted, I think, on anything here, discussion on Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I sit on their board. So if there's,
These are recommendations, you don't vote anyway, really, so you can listen and.
am I,
I'm
am
just-
I, I don't know if I'm conflicted or not, so if anybody. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah.
You want me to go? Do you want me to take it? Can I just sit here and take it, or do I have to sit there? Okay. Okay, so we're going to go through line by line and look at whether or not we agree with what you're recommending? Could we not look at it and decide, is there anything here that we have questions on? I mean, do you have criteria why you've recommended certain dollars for certain ones?
There is a community grant evaluation matrix that gives our justification for why we have done what we've done. So there's a basis for the recommendation, and then there's the evaluation questions and comments.
So you feel that you can justify your recommendation? I have a question only, and we can go line by line if we want. I'll jump back in. But when you have here, before we do, like, requested for the yacht club, we paid them $7,000 last year. Requested is blank this year. And then we're recommending another $7,000. Have they requested $7,000 annually, or was that just a one-time?
We pay them, thank you for your question. We pay them $7,000 every year. I'm not aware of an agreement for that one, and that is for dredging.
So every year we do.
So they send us an invoice each year for that.
And we don't have an MOU for that?
Not that I'm aware of, but actually
Okay.
that's an interesting
We need
issue
to
that
if we
you brought
don't.
up, because, for instance, for the Boys and Girls Club, for the last few years, we've paid them $20,000. I know this past year, they sent us an invoice in October that we paid, and it was approved last year, but I'm not aware of us getting an application either last year or this year. But we seem to pay $20,000 a year, and we didn't put a recommendation in there because we didn't receive a request. So there is an inconsistency in that. We picked that up
I think we
for-
really need to tighten that up as far as when we're paying that kind of money out, there needs to be, if it's an annual thing especially, we need to look at having some sort of an MOU or something in place that backs up why we're doing that. That would be just a recommendation. Anyway, poor John's out. Big Brothers Big Sisters have requested $50,000 and the staff's recommending $50,000, okay? Does anyone have any issue with $50,000?
Betty, I'm looking at your matrix for Big Brothers Big Sisters. That's on page 10, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So I looked at, and you said in the past they were getting 20?
Big Brothers and Big Sisters, no, this is a new request this year, and that is largely for capital. They're looking at adding an accessible entrance and washroom and kitchen facilities.
And is that, did you say capital or operational? That's operational. Did I hear that right?
Well, it's capital from their end, like sort of project-based as opposed to just operational needs. So they have a project in that they want to add an accessible entrance and upgrade or redo or add to their washroom and kitchen facilities. So that's a project. It's not something that would be every year.
So it's a one-time request?
Yes.
Okay. And just on the yacht club, that's 7,000. I think that's over 10 years. We agreed to that back, I think in 2018, 2019, because the outflow from the bottom of Queen Street was contributing to the silt buildup in
So there should
the,
be an agreement of some sort for
there has to
that.
be agreement somewhere. Yeah. I think it was over 10 years. So, just before we go on, this total of $378,464, that's, then we also add the 400,000, or is this the 400,000 we're spending? Because in the past, we've always had that, we had it at 500,000.
Can we have
last year.
that discussion when the chair comes back in?
Oh, yeah, no, even before the chair, I just want to know, is that 400 still there, or is that the 370?
The 400,000 would cover this. It's not over and above this. The 400,000 is for this.
Okay, but we had the 400,000 left over from, that was what we parked last year. We parked 500,000, and we went through all our other requests. Are they here too? Are these all the requests right here? That's it?
These are
Yeah.
all the requests under the community grant category that comes out of the finance other section of
Yes.
the budget.
So last year, I think we had almost 1 million or less in grants? Because we gave out, we designated or dedicated a number of areas, and we had 500,000 left over, and I think we dropped it down to 400. So you're saying we only have 400 in grants to deal with?
In this area, part of the $500,000 last year, a significant portion, are grants that are in the economic development, arts and culture budget. So for instance, the 200,000 from last year for the Confederation Center was part of that 500,000, but that now sits in the economic development, arts and culture budget.
We haven't
And
gotten
a number of the new grants we had last year were requests that fell under the arts and culture section. So we've put them in that part of the budget this year.
And we haven't even, yeah, no, you could, I mean, I think if we get through the first line for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, so our chair can come back and return to the meeting, does anyone have any issue with, the request came in, the justification was there, it was for some renovations to help bring their building and stuff up to par? Staff's recommending, are we comfortable with moving that one ahead?
Sure.
Okay, Chair, you can return. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. Carry on. Are we through the grant piece, or?
No, second one, second line item.
So
Okay.
do we want to go through line by line then, or do you want to kind of pick out ones you have questions and want more information on? I'm happy to do it either way.
Go line to line. So there's only a few of them there.
Yep.
Sure. Okay, so the next one is Blooming House, and they, I believe, were a new one last year. Certainly the year before, there had not been one. They asked for $75,000 last year. We gave them 50. They've asked for 75,000 again, and the recommendation is to give them 75,000.
Betty, if you don't mind, could you just get the mic a little closer, please?
No problem. And the questions there, is this request broad-based and open to all members of the public? And yes, Blooming House is dedicated to improving the lives of women experiencing homelessness. How does the application demonstrate financial need? The operating costs have increased due to rising living costs. In addition to that, the number of vulnerable populations has increased significantly. The 24 projected operational expenses are significantly higher than confirmed funding and revenue. How does this request propose to have a positive impact on the community? By addressing the growing needs of vulnerable islanders, Blooming House has helped over 225 women in nearly 5 years of operation. The matrix asks a question of how does it propose to promote diversity, equality, and inclusion, and there's nothing specifically in their mandate to encourage that. However, they do offer services to all women. Does the grant advance the priorities of the city's strategic plan? Yes, by remaining committed to the ongoing community engagement. Blooming House is helping vulnerable island women by promoting a safe and welcoming space. The grant is for operational expenses. Due to the increasing number of vulnerable women and inflation, Blooming House needs assistance from the city to cover operational costs such as transportation, rent, necessary supplies, and food. So although the grant is requesting for operational expenses, the city's contribution will enable Blooming House to keep operating. So for those reasons, the staff recommendation is that we go ahead with the full $75,000.
So Betty, that means from here on, from going forward today, if we agree to it, it'll now be 75,000. That's what we're saying, okay?
They don't have to apply every year?
No, well, they will,
They would apply
Oh, yeah.
every year.
but next year will not be 50, it'll be 75. And they may ask, there could be an incremental increase too.
Why do we have to set that? Why can't we just evaluate every year?
We can, and we do.
We do.
Yeah, you just said it'll be 75.
Well, if they ask 75 this year, they'll probably ask 75 next year.
Yeah, but it'll have to be reevaluated at that
They all
point to
are.
see, yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
I think the first year we did it, Betty, we did give them 10,000. I don't know where it came out of, but we did give them 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know last year they did ask for 75, and we gave them 50.
Okay.
So we're good with that one? Okay. The next one is Bootleg City Roller Derby. They are a not-for-profit organization. They are requesting $2,964. And the reason for that is the most significant barrier to joining roller derby is the prohibitive cost of acquiring essential equipment. So they are looking at these funds to help them establish a gear lending library that would have 6 complete gear sets, and also to subsidize space rental to provide increased training opportunities. But this is primarily for this gear lending library that would allow more folks to take advantage of this opportunity. So it is seen as being project-based, which we give higher priority to project-based requests. The club does offer opportunities to a wide variety of people. It has a positive impact on the community by giving another opportunity for physical activity to help relieve stress, combat anxiety, and mitigate depression, particularly, I think, for young people. It advances the city's strategic priorities through community development and promoting inclusion. And as I said, is project-based. So for those reasons, we are recommending the full amount, the $2,964.
Like, I'm just, we agreed to go line by line, but I don't think have to go through the whole report on anything, do we? Like everyone?
I have a few questions. Yeah, you're right. I don't want to have to go through them.
No,
I
but
think
when
we
you
just
come
want
up
to
to
do them
one.
as a total.
Sure.
And then we can go back through them?
Okay.
That's what I'm
perfect.
looking at.
Yeah, because you'd be here all day explaining,
yep.
yeah.
And we all read them.
Yeah, we all read them, so to just go
Okay.
through line item, if there's any questions you want to ask, then
Yeah.
if that's,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
No,
Charlotte?
that's fine, Councillor Drong, and if the committee's in support of that, then, yeah, like, I know I went through them all as well, and as Councillor McCabe has said, so, there may be questions here, but, Betty, if you can kind of skim through and we'll
Sure.
get to
Charlottetown
the
Meals-
questions.
Charlottetown Meals on Wheels is the next one. They're a
No,
not-for-profit organization.
The Boys and Girls Club, right? That's the next one, is it not? After the bootleg?
It's the next one on the list, yes. We have not completed a evaluation matrix because we didn't get a request from them.
Okay, so I have questions about that. Do you?
I do too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
You go ahead.
Thank you. Not to interrupt, like, I know we decided to go through line item, but we happened to miss that one. And I'm quite scared that if someone in their organization forgot to put in for a grant, and we give them 20,000 every year to keep the program going, and all of a sudden they don't get it, have we reached out, or is there any, understanding that they get this every year? That's my concern.
Betty, do you have
I know
a opinion?
I know the intention at one point was to reach out to everybody that we hadn't heard of, but I'm not completely certain what happened in this case. I know it was about the time that the grant requests were coming in that we got their invoice for $20,000 for the past year. Some of them in the past have been kind of off-cycle compared to everything else. I don't really know why, because, yeah, November is the normal time that we ask for them to come in, and then we pay them out in May. So there are a few, like I know the 7,000 for the yacht club is the same sort of thing. Their invoice comes in the fall. But what might be a good compromise here would be to put $10,000 into the budget sort of for the half year, then we can get them back on track. So that would be if we pay out $10,000 in the fall and request, if they want to make a submission, to make a submission in November to be paid out for the following fiscal year. And that just gets them back on the same cycle as everybody else.
And you'll make that, or finance will make that follow-up with boys and
Yes.
girls?
Yes.
Okay. Does that sound, is
No.
the committee fine with that?
No,
No?
just put the 20,000 in.
Okay.
No, it's the Boys and Girls Club. Now, I know they use the building, it's our building, but they pay for the heat, lights, and so forth, and it's a very, very good program for Prince Street School students, a lot of students around the core area.
Okay, I mean, I was going to suggest that from, from the top, but, I mean, there is money in the budget. The full 400 has not been allocated, so can you okay with that, Betty? And then,
Certainly.
and let's make the follow-up with them, so to get whatever paperwork we need or request or whatever from them, invoice or whatever we need to trigger the funds, I guess, is making sure it's not, can't imagine that they'll, miss that or not be expedient getting whatever you need for, send them the funds. Okay, continue, thanks.
Okay, so Charlottetown Meals on Wheels is the next one. They're a not-for-profit organization that we fund every year. Their request this year is $7,500. It's up a little bit from the previous year, and it's for operational costs. But they do good work, as is outlined in the matrix, so the recommendation is to move forward with that one. So I have to scroll back and forth between my list and my evaluation matrix. Now, Charlottetown Yacht Club, we didn't have a request, so we have not done an evaluation matrix, but we have an agreement, so the recommendation is to move forward with $7,000 as we have in the past.
So Betty, just on that, they didn't submit an application?
No. But if we have a 10-year agreement with them,
I think we need to follow up on that and make sure that
Yeah,
or
no,
something.
we have, that's why I like the budget from last year, the detailed budget. So on 21, section 21, page 1, grants, you have two sections, agreements, grants. Yacht Club is under grants. So they have to apply every year for that. So they didn't apply.
but didn't you say, my apologies.
Oh, no,
thought
when
you
I
talked-
said a few years ago, we
There
set
was
up,
one.
we
Yep.
set up an
So-
account. So they didn't apply, but we're giving it to them. And Betty, just while I have you here, where's Bedford McDonald House? Am I missing that? Is that here? Bedford McDonald House. Yeah, but it was
No.
in last year's, 15,000. And
It was approved in the budget last year, but we did not pay it out. We didn't get a request from them. We did not get an invoice from them, and we didn't get a request this year either. I don't think we've paid that one out since 2021.
oh,
There's money, isn't that province oversight now too, or not Salvation Army through? So I mean, again, there has to be responsibility unless there's an ongoing agreement.
yeah, Charlottetown Yacht Club, there has to be a responsibility, you're right.
Yeah, so we just, as long as that's in place, and if we haven't paid out Bedford McDonald, they obviously have enough money in their operating budget through the Salvation Army with whatever, if they haven't come looking for it. I mean, they have to come looking for money if they want money. We're not just gonna hold money to give money if they didn't ask for money, are we? Make
Okay.
sense?
Okay, continue.
The Confederation Racing Series, $5,000.
Yeah. That's through Economic Development, Tourism, and the Office of the Mayor. 3 of us.
Is there an agreement for that one?
No, it's a grant. It comes in every year. He makes an application through Wayne Long.
Okay,
So shouldn't that be then in economic,
It
for
is.
that grant, or
It's in
what?
there, it's in Economic Development. It's
But
in
this is finance grants.
Yeah, and there's a grant here, and there's one from the Office of the Mayor. It's 15,000.
Oh, okay, so they get 10 from them and 5 from the mayor's office.
Yeah.
So the mayor's office would be here?
No.
it's
on-
5, 5, and 5. So
5,
5
5.
from Economic Development, 5 from the mayor's office, and 5 from here.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, so Friends of the Farm is
2.
next on the list.
That's a fair request.
Friends of the Farm.
That the QEH is up 5,000 this year, obviously, I guess. Yeah, no,
I'm just trying to find my Friends of the Farm. There should be one in here, but I'm not seeing it.
There is an evaluation matrix, Betty.
I go from Meals on Wheels to
we're on,
the Farm Center, so I don't have Friends of the Farm.
It's in our package. It's in our package.
yeah, there's the
Yeah, it's right after.
is it the,
You
yeah,
don't
it's a
have it?
Prince Edward,
I have it in front of me here.
Friends of the Farm for 2000.
They requested 25. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. I don't have Friends of the Farm either. I'm on Farm Center, sorry.
I'm on page 7 of our digital copy that has
Thank you.
all the requests, right?
Yep.
Okay, Dan tells me that, yes, Friends of the Farm is on page 35. They're a volunteer group who we support each year. They provide green space in the experimental farm and do gardening work. And they're looking at this year doing, adding perennials that will
Perennial garden.
be more cost-effective in future years and more environmentally friendly. So they're looking for $2,000 to work towards establishing the new perennial garden. So back to the farm center, they're looking for 25,000. So they are an ongoing program. They provide healing and nature-based therapies through their legacy garden and the therapeutic horticultural program. They are looking at expanding their programs to help veterans. So that's the reason for their application this year.
So Betty, just the Prince Edward Farm Center, so is there any issue on that or question on that? Everybody's good?
No, I'm just getting lost. Friends of the Farm there was 2,000.
Yeah, and then, exactly, I was gonna go back, Councillor Drong, so then Friends of the Farm, if we're good there, then it's Hospice, PEI, Kids Support, Kiwanis. So, Hospice, PEI, Betty?
So they are asking for $10,000, and we are recommending $10,000. This is a new request, I believe, this year, and they rely on 80% of their operational expenses coming in through donations and fundraising. There is a reduction in donations So they're having trouble maintaining their level of community and health services. So this would be a grant to help them with their operations, to keep the doors open and provide services to the community.
Okay,
God bless them.
Yeah, go-
You know, yeah.
go,
Hopefully never have to see them.
you good?
Yeah, I'm great.
Yeah, Kids Park, PEI, 10,000?
They're asking for $10,000. This is one that we support each year, I believe. And this is to offer grants to kids, island kids who want to participate in sports.
Okay, and we had the presentation from the Kiwanis Club, and, yeah, which,
We did. But on the Kiwanis Club, they will do it over 5 years. We don't forget we can go over 5 years. 10,000, 10,000. That's what we agreed to. Yeah, but just, so if I go back to last year's budget, okay, under grants, we had 681,300. Up that 681,000, we had 500,000 set aside. This year, we're taking 400 because we reduced that 500 down to 400, and we're trying to get everything out of that. So there'll be no reserve. If we spend all
I
this.
thought our new policy is that they have to apply in November and that is, we don't reserve. We're not going back. I thought didn't we say we weren't going to go back and revisit?
Well, so let's say if we get a call from the Bedford McDonald House, and they said, look, you missed it, but you never collected it for 3 years. Well, we want it now. It's now live stream. If ever, anyone that's watching this, they're going to say, wonder why they didn't apply for it. You need to have something as a backup. Like, as I
We
said.
do have a backup, don't we? Have a reserve fund that we reduced our budget for and have a little reserve fund somewhere for those types of things?
That's why we had the $500,000 in new grants set aside.
No, I know, I'm
Last year.
just saying, did we not have a little reserve fund when we went from 2 million to 1.5 million in our agreement in our budget?
That's extraordinary
So if Bedford calls
expenses.
and needs 25,000, then it's an emergency and we can override that. But why are we going to open up the door when we put it in our policy to say, you apply in November, they're considered, they come through at budget time?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the boys and girls didn't get their application in, we're going to say no to them? We said yes to them. They didn't apply. That's why she didn't offer the 20,000. That's why it's not there, because they didn't make an application. But we're going to say 20,000 Boys and Girls Club, I hope.
But did they apply every year in November?
Last year, they sent us an invoice for $20,000. I'm not aware, I have not seen an application from them, I have not seen an agreement from them, but they sent us an invoice for $20,000. But we did not get anything from Bedford.
And did they send your invoice like at this time of year, Betty, or do you remember when it was?
The Boys and Girls Club and the Charlottetown Yacht Club both sent them in the fall, like October-ish.
So we didn't get one in October-ish for this year, or it'll come this coming October?
It would come this coming October. And to me, it's a tough call. Like, do you reach out to them all? If you reach out to everybody who's applied in the past, it's giving them first dibs. And then if you have new requests, like the Boys and Girls Club for 50,000, your money's kind of all taken up, unless you want it just to keep growing every year. I believe we publicized it more than we did the previous year on social media and other ways to say that the grant application process is underway and that there is a timeline. And I know when we sent out the letters about it last year to say, yes, you've been approved, or no, you haven't been approved, we included a copy of the policy so people could see the November deadline. So we're doing our best to reach out to folks and to let them know. But it's a matter of how much do we get in touch with the people who've gotten it before, as opposed to them reaching out to us because they do it every year, so you'd think they would know.
And again, we put a policy in place so that we would have rules to follow and to keep it fair. But I guess if we're not going to, then we should amend that or do something, because otherwise we're not following what we've agreed upon. That's why we put that in place, right? I mean, there was a reason we put things in place. We wanted things to be fair and even and equal for everybody to have the same opportunity to apply and to do it right.
And we did have extra money last year in case we did have any additional requests throughout the year.
500,000.
And we didn't have it, well, part of that was to cover requests that we already had. They were new requests that year, and we wanted to update the policy before we move forward with them. But we didn't have any additional requests throughout the year, except for one or two organizations who made a second request. But nobody new applied during the year last year.
Yeah, so that 500,000 went down to 400, but did we spend anything of that 400 last year? I don't think so.
Well, yes, we did. The 200,000 for the Confederation Center came out of the 500,000. And then there was a number of other arts and culture grants. I don't recall what they are, but the ones that we evaluated in May, the new ones, they all came out of the 500,000.
No, my understanding, if I remember correctly, they asked for 5 million first, and we made a collective decision to go with $1 million over 5 years at 200,000. So I didn't know that fell in the grants section because it's not here. So you're saying it came after the budget was passed?
No, it was a new request last year, so it was written up on a new initiative form, and there was a number of them, I don't know, 10 or 12 last year that were on a new initiative forms that we set aside this 500,000 to cover those.
Okay. So if you look at it, is the committee in favor of giving the 50,000 for Kiwanis? I was thinking over 5 years, but if you want to go 50,000, fill your boots.
Is there, Betty, is it, do you see, is there any, do you have an opinion on that? In terms of doing it lump sum versus 10,000 over 5 years?
At the moment, it seems like we have sufficient budget to cover that, so to go ahead with the 50,000 makes sense. But if we want to set a little bit aside in case we have any more requests, we could do that as well.
No, if the committee, the majority agrees, move on, 50,000.
You good? Okay, go ahead.
Queen Elizabeth Hospital is the next one on the list, is it?
Yeah.
It's the next evaluation form I have here. And that they are looking for $50,000 over 2 years. So the recommendation would be to go forward with the 25,000 in each of the 2 years.
Okay. Mayor Brown?
Good?
Okay, we're good.
Seniors Active Living Center.
So the next two lines relate to the Seniors Active Living Center. For a number of years, we have paid $15,000 to the Seniors Active Living Center, of which they paid half of that to Kerry to cover the common area costs, and the other half was for the Seniors Active Living Center. Back in August, this came to council, and there was a resolution having the city worked, my understanding is the city was to work directly with Kerry for $15,000 for rent over the next 5 years.
Chair, I'm just clarifying here, Betty. We pay the rent for 15,000, then we give the Seniors Active Living Center 15,000, so it's $30,000.
Yes, so the Seniors Active Living Center have made the request for $20,000 over 20 years. Going through the matrix, we have a recommendation of $15,000 and over 5 years. In looking at their financial statements, they had a shortfall in the most recent financial statements they sent us of approximately $15,000, which is why we were willing to support the $15,000, as well as the fact that they're getting, their rent is now being covered separately, so there is a benefit that they are getting there. Interestingly, we just recently received the invoice from Kerry for the rent, and they have it split almost 50-50 between rent and common area costs, totaling $15,000. But since it's deemed to be rent as opposed to a grant, there's then HST on top of the 15,000, so it will make it a little bit more than 15,000.
I think there's a whole bunch here that, and listen, I am in full support of providing accommodations for getting active living opportunities for our seniors, but I don't understand how seniors have to pay to go and use a facility that we're already paying for. And maybe someone can explain that in simpler terms for me, but when I'm seeing that we're paying their rent and they're charging seniors to come in and they're in debt $15,000 for what? What are they doing that would cost $15,000 for seniors to use the space? Because I can help them figure out some ideas that they could do to engage seniors that might not cost $15,000 to include people to get them out and get them active and help out. But that's a lot of money to me, so I'm really struggling with understanding that. I want to see more people have access to this service, and how can we help support that without it being a cost?
So could I just ask, Dan, in your financial plan, where is the carry budget?
Here.
What page? Do you have the 23, 24, 24, 25?
I'm sorry.
Capital or operating?
No, operating. It should be in the plan, right? I'm just trying to find it because in the years past, we'd have it's separate. What does it fall under this year now?
No, I just got the capital.
Oh, no, capital is, and the reason I asked,
It's through the charity, your worship, it's under fiscal services.
fiscal service, and there's no page numbers here, so where am I going after economic tourism,
Can I see your budget, Penny?
fiscal services?
It's under finance and audit, so it should be the next, they're alphabetical, so it should be the next one after.
Okay.
Or maybe
Oh,
it's after
It is alphabetical.
sustainability.
Okay, so I'm looking under fiscal services, interest long-term, insurance. Okay, hold on, fiscal services.
Be under agreements and grants, your worship.
I'm on fiscal services, and it's just interest on long-term, interest on short-term depreciation. You must have the little more detail than we do. Because last year they got $1 million. Is that the front?
Carry operating grant. Go ahead, Penny.
Because the request, I think, was 1.2, 2.5, 1 million and a quarter.
So the carry operating would be under the other, so finance and audit right at the bottom under other expenses, agreements and grants, the 3.6 million, it's included in that number there.
They're getting 3 million?
That's all the agreements and grants.
Okay, so what would that include? East Link, Cary, the airport?
Yes, and this 400,000,
Cary gets, and we pay the property taxes too, right? Operations last year was 985. So what's it this year? Is it 1.2 million? 1.25. So 1.25 plus 15,000 plus 75. Wow. Well, I think the 15 should, for the rent should just come off that 2.5 million we gave them. I don't know why we're giving them rent when we're paying for the building.
Exactly.
This is,
You know, but this is where we get into the debate last year. They kept coming back with more letters and the board and all this stuff. I mean, it just gets like
Headache.
bucket that's leaking, right? So we agreed to support the seniors, and that's what we agreed here. Sorry to put my 2 cents in.
No, I'd say the SALC grant is already covered under the 1.25 million. Unless you're going to say, well, we have a resolution.
Then I think we need to bring that resolution back, and we need to look at it and maybe make some amendments to it, because that's not what I understood whenever we went into the original agreement.
And, Mr. Chair, can I ask our Director of Finance Administration, when this agreement first started, I think you did some history on it. What was the original operating grant coming from the city? Dan, what was it? Was it 87,000?
Thank you, through the chair, to your worship. I believe in 2003, when the original agreement was drafted, the intention was that there would be no operating deficits, but that the agreement stated that the maximum responsibility of the city would be 79,000. And then in 2010, there was a new agreement signed by the city, which essentially obligated the city to cover 87% of whatever operating deficits they incurred.
So, Mr. Chair, what do you want to do?
Well, the request we have here before us is a committee in support of what the staff or Betty and her team are recommending.
Well, she said we have a resolution, and she's right, we have a resolution that was, we made a decision at this committee, as Councillor Duran said, we weren't going to pay it, then they come back with, we're an independent board, you can't tell us what to do. And so we agreed to a resolution, and here we are paying 15 plus 15. Like, you have to support your seniors, but, oh my heavens. 25% increase in their operating budget, property taxes. When it first started, it was 87, or did you say 79,000? Like,
Did we ever meet with the board? Because I don't recall the board coming in, they were kind of upset with the fact that we were overriding what they felt our role was. But we never really sat down and had any discussion. That was done all at an operational level, was it? Like, maybe they need to come in and present to us and allow us to explain why and what. We heard from the Seniors Active Living Center,
Yeah.
but we did not hear from the Board of the Carry directly.
Danny, any comment on that?
Sure. Can offer a little bit of background in terms of my involvement thus far, just in the last few months. The CAO and I did meet with the chair of the board and the general manager of the Kerry facility. They outlined some of their concerns moving forward in terms of governance and the operating model. The fact that, perhaps some of the costs of the facility aren't being shared proportionally amongst, those users. So Cornwall and Stratford do contribute nominally, but not perhaps proportionally to the costs that are incurred to serve their residents. And they also, highlighted that to some extent the provision of recreational facilities is really may be considered a provincial responsibility as opposed to just a municipal one, particularly a facility of this scale and who they're serving. So I think suffice to say that we, as administration, would like to do a deeper dive into the relationship with both Kerry and the Eastlink Centre in terms of the costs that we're looking at both currently and looking down the road. A fairly major capital investment plan at Kerry in particular, and the potential for a major capital expenditure at Eastlink to be proposed and to be considered here coming along the road. So I think it's something that we think it deserves some serious attention. We do currently have, I think, 4 or 5 board members. I think we appoint the chair of the board at Kerry, and I think we have four additional board members. And I'm not sure the extent of the connection, feedback, relationship in terms of the city presenting our interests to those board members and having, the issues that we might be thinking about discussed at the board level. So I think, from start to finish, it's something that we'd like to have a little closer look at. And there, it may be a case of, with all the transitions that have happened in the last couple of years in terms of senior management and management, that some balls may have been dropped. So it is certainly something that we're aware of that needs to be tended to.
Do they
And-
report to our committee? Does Kerry fall under finance? Is that our committee's responsibility? So with every other advisory board, we have an opportunity, Your Worship, to meet with the members that sit. I don't even know who's on our Kerry board. So if I'm the committee responsible for who they're responsible to report to, and I don't even know who they are, that is problematic. And there should be more opportunity for them to come in and talk to us about what's happening, what are the discussions, what are the decisions. Like, they vote, they make decisions. Are you updated? Are you briefed, Your Worship?
They're an independent board. No, they're independent. But now I just wanted to just highlight what our director said. Correct me if I'm wrong, are they talking about differential fees for people coming from Cornwall and other places around the island? Is that what is?
No, I don't think they were proposing that, but just highlighting the fact that there may be inequities in terms of who's bearing the cost of providing the facilities to residents.
Equities or inequities?
Inequities.
Inequities.
Yeah.
So how do we solve that? Do we send them a bill? Like, what was the chair and the manager saying to you?
Through the chair to Your Worship, they didn't have an answer for us, but just highlighted, highlighted the inequity, and perhaps it was also something that was highlighted in our review of the funding formula, that perhaps recreation facilities should be something that is at least contributed to from provincial taxes, because like policing, we're serving not just our housed population, but others outside of our municipality. So yeah, I think more issues identified than solutions provided, but at least the discussion's starting.
So Dan, just in your remarks there that you've just shared, was the Seniors Active Living Center part of that in any way?
No, the Seniors Active Living Center didn't come up in our discussion. But we did have a review of, I did have a look at the resolution that came to council in terms of providing the rent payment directly to Kerry. There are some implications in terms of our cost share of funding a deficit. So if the money's going directly to Kerry as opposed to assist with rent and common area costs, then we would get the benefit of the full amount of that revenue, as opposed to just a portion of that might be coming from the Seniors Active Living Center. I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know entirely what the intention was there, but that's perhaps something that we can dig into a little deeper between now and when the subject comes to council.
Yeah, so as it relates to this Seniors Active request that we have before us here, I understand, what Betty shared, which, from the point of view, looked at their financials, I guess, and, there's a $15,000 shortfall, if I understand it right. Hence the recommendation, here. Based on that, and, in a 5-year window, I'm personally, I'm fine with supporting that. If the committee is in agreement with that, or
So you're supporting both the rent from Kerry, the Bell Alliance Board, and the Seniors Active Living Center. Is that what you're saying?
correct?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm not in support of it, and, it's, with all due respect, I understand where you're coming from, the chair, but, I can't support that, right? So, we may as well have a vote on that one item and move on.
Okay, the vote's pretty obvious, I guess. It's 3.
I want to find the balls that fell, and I want to pick them up and get them back together. I'd like to work on that. I'd like to figure out a better plan moving forward and a little bit more clearer understanding.
So we're going, I guess, we're going with the 15,000 off that was paid in 23, 24, correct? It's not, we're not,
Seniors?
Yes.
Yep.
but the 15,000 for the next 5 years, I guess, is not going to be approved at this point?
I don't know if we cannot, I think we have to get a little clearer. Can we just not pay it? Because is that part of an agreement?
So I just want to clarify, you're suggesting go ahead with the 15,000 to the Seniors Active Living Center, but not the 15,000 for the rent to carry?
That's right. But you're going to say that there's a resolution that was passed for us to pay 15,000 to them for the next 5 years at 75,000, correct? Well, we're giving them 1.25 million. It's up by 25%. And I said that to the board, that any increase that you get, subtract the 75 and subtract the 15. I'd like to subtract the 75 too, because up until this year, 50,000 for 10, every year, 500,000 over 10 years came to the city to offset our telecommunication costs. Starting next year, we're paying the full freight. But Kerry will be getting the 75,000 times 5 for the next 5 years. So I said, this was an agreement that was made. 50 went to the city, 20 went to the Kerry facility. Now this, for the next 5 years, 75, 75, 75, 75, 75 will be going to the Bell Alliance board. That's where I'm at.
I thought we were just paying $15,000 a year for their rent to be covered and they were going to be left alone and carry on. That was my understanding when I voted.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I mean, that's quite a thing.
Yeah, because you were, when you first were elected in 2014, remember it was with East Link?
Yes.
And then you switched over to Bell Alliance? That's 70,000, that's 700,000 over 10 years. 50 went to the city, not in cash, but in services,
Sure.
services in kind. 20,000 in cash went to, 20 in services went to the Bell Alliance Center. So 10 years, 200,000. City, 500,000. Now, the deal that's been negotiated for the next 5 years is 75 cash. Year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will be going to the Kerry board.
Obviously, we never had a say in it.
No, but because they're an independent board. The board did.
Yet you come back looking for us, I agree with what you're saying, definitely.
Okay, we clear on that, Betty?
Sure, sure.
Okay, Special Olympics?
Special Olympics, so they have requested $15,000. and the recommendation is to provide 5,000 to balance their 24-25 budget. So for the past 6 years, the city has supported the Special Olympics. A grant of $5,000 will continue to engage in community development and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have a balanced budget.
Okay, and sport PEI.
Okay, so my apologies, on the listing there for Special Olympics, it does say 15,000. That's my mistake, it should say 5,000. That's what the evaluation matrix has. You okay with 5,000?
Yeah, Special Olympics last year for 23-24 was 15,000.
Yes, it was. But I'm just reviewing the matrix here, and it has 5,000. I'm just looking for the reason as to why we've gone with 5,000 and not the full 15.
It says 15,000 requested amount, and then it says 5,000 for 24-25 to balance her budget. Page 30 on the digital copy.
But you're right, we've given 15,000 in the past, so my apologies, I don't recall the reason for reducing that. But that is what the matrix is recommending. So as far as how the application demonstrates financial need, according to their 2024 budget, they'll have a net income of $10,000, including donation revenue of $75,000. So that's why we were suggesting dropping it down to just 5, but we have given 15,000 in the past.
And then they had their Olympics this year too. Maybe there was extra money in it when they were traveling for Special Olympics this past year. Who knows? But good program.
Yeah, so just to be clear, 15, are we doing the 15 as a lump sum?
Yeah.
Is the committee fine with that?
Yeah.
Okay, Betty?
So we're good with the 15? Okay, thank you. Sport PEI is the next one on the list. They requested 60,760. We have provided 60,000 in funding for the last several years, so we're recommending staying with that same amount. They use this to, my understanding is that they support a number of community organizations, and it's based on kind of like a percentage or an amount per individual involved in the activity. So they've given us a list of the various organizations and how much per person, and given us a total of that. And it's usually 60,000 and a bit, and we support them for $60,000.
Does, just on that, Betty, just looking at the recommendation, that any sense of what the, it's in brackets there, it says, for the Royalty Centre House of Sport in brackets project, is there something, anybody in the committee happen to know what that,
That's what it says on the listing or on the evaluation form?
on the basis for the recommendation? No, just second paragraph. It just says, Sport PEI is requesting a grant of $60,700 for the Royalty Centre House of Sport project. Anyway, I was just curious if there was something special, or you were Mayor Brown, or
No, I'm
what?
fine with it.
Anyone else? What that
No.
possibly might be? No. That's anyway. It's project, I guess. Obviously. All right.
The next one on the list, I believe, is Wise Skateboarding PEI. We have not recommended moving forward with that one because we didn't know what type of organization it was. We tend to prefer not-for-profits. We don't like to, we don't recommend grants that are going to increase the profit of an organization, and we have reached out to them and have not heard back on that, which is why that one is not being recommended.
So Betty, just to clarify, they are for-profit?
We don't know.
Wise
Skateboarding. So they're looking at this to help offer affordable skateboarding classes, free beginner lessons. So it was not project-based, it was operational, and if it was a for-profit organization, that this might be contributing to their profit, but they did not provide us with enough information for us to be able to tell. And we've reached out at least a week ago, asking for further information and have not heard back.
So if we do find out it is a not-for-profit,
We
Yes,
could
we can
bring
revisit.
forward a recommendation at a later time.
thank you.
So the next one we have is Young at Heart Theatre. That's one that we've supported for a number of years. They're asking for $4,000, and we are recommending $4,000 as well. They provide shows for seniors and special workshops for seniors and their families, so it's a community service that they offer.
All right, that concludes the budget grant line exercise. Any loop back questions? Mayor Brown, you have your mic on? Or
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair, we parked the 15,000 to Kerry, and what else did we park? Everything is the same.
I don't, as Councillor McCabe said, I don't think there was anything
Everything was,
else.
that's the only one?
And the 20,000 for the Boys and Girls Club we've added.
We added that, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's safe to add that, Betty.
yeah.
So would that then take her
Puts it up by
378 up to 398?
Increase it by 5,000.
Or,
Adding 20 and taking off 15.
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to give them 20, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, again, Betty, I'm just going back to last year. It was 681,000, but 500,000 was set aside for new grants. And you're saying of that 500,000, 200 went to the Confederation Center, 200 else, like, did we expend the whole, the total amount? I don't think we did.
We didn't expend the whole amount, no. We did
Yeah.
expend, I think there was 100 to 150.
Yeah. So this year, instead of 681,000, we got 378.
That is correct.
Right. So the difference between that, where did we divert that? Like, where did that? Where did-
Yes, a portion of the 500,000 went to arts and culture and was included in their budget, that's correct.
Okay, so if I go back to our special meeting, when you had presented your report, or you were going to, we didn't get to it, on grants, March 11th, I would find there, I can locate those, where those other expenditures went to. Up to 681,000 was budgeted last year, we're going 378. You're saying that this year you're putting it into arts and culture and so forth?
I don't know, I cannot confirm that if you add the arts and culture plus what's here in the 400,000. I don't know that it adds up to 681. We did not, we budgeted based on what we thought the need was going to be, as opposed to taking what we had last year and making sure it was budgeted for again. Because last year it was increased by 500,000, which was a big increase over prior years.
Yeah, because the grant's broken down into events. This is from your presentation. Transit, arts and culture, parks and rec, heritage, water and sewer, yeah, that's right too. There's Winter River, Trackety Bay, PEI, environment, sustainability, so there's a number of areas. So we must, is that where we shifted it around into those other areas, events, environment, sustainability?
I can give you the breakdown here of the 681 from last year. Would that be helpful? So it's the 500,000,
Yeah,
and then it's 15,000 for Bedford House, 20,000 for Boys and Girls Club, 7,000 for the Yacht Club, 5,000 for the Confederation Racing Series, 2,000 for Friends of the Farm, 10,000 for Kids Sport, 5,500 for Meals on Wheels, 20,000 for the hospital, 15,000 for the Seniors Active Living, 15,000 for Special Olympics, 16,000 for Sport PEI, 3,500 for Young at Heart Theatre, and 3,300 for miscellaneous.
yeah, which amounted to $181,300. Plus 500.
Plus the 500,000.
Yeah,
That's
because
correct.
this year we added 50,000 for Big Brothers. Blooming House went up to 75. Well, I don't think we had Blooming House down here last year. Yeah, it was-
Blooming House was part of the 500,000.
Oh, that's right. It came in after. And we gave them 50,000 last year. Okay. Okay. So it's been expensed, the difference between the two has been expensed. There's no putting it somewhere else that we could,
To carry forward, no.
okay.
No.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we're moving forward with the amount on the list adjusted by the 20,000 and the 15,000. And do we need a motion then to do something about the carry 15,000? That will have to be addressed somehow. Does that resolution get rescinded, or do we put forward the recommendation to do that? What do we do with the 15,000 for carry?
As I said when I was speaking to the board, and I said it to the chair and also the general manager, you know, any money that you take in extra, that's going to be taken off from our contribution. So last year's contribution was 985,000. It's up 25%, so they can just incorporate it in the 1.25, or they can, that's where I'm incorporating. We're still giving the money, but it's not going through grants. I think that's just an in and out. That's
I
my
think
view.
we have to adhere to the agreement that we've already agreed to, though, right? And how long did we sign this agreement for, or say we were going to, do you recall what the resolution was?
It's for 5 years.
That was in the resolution, that we would agree to do that for 5 years?
Yeah, but we don't have to do it in grants. We've done it, we're going to do it in our contribution.
Okay. Does that
That's-
work? And I think you
that's-
need to work that, though. If we have a resolution that it's in through a grant, is that what our resolution is?
I don't think it's through grants. You get the resolution, doesn't say it's through grants. We'll pay $15,000 for rent. So we'll pay that.
Can we get clarification on that and bring it back? So we're going to defer that line item until we get this sorted out. Can we do that? That one line item, and still approve everything else?
Yes, we can do that, but my understanding was that it's not just that we're deferring that line item, but we're declining that line item.
I think I would prefer to defer it until we make sure that our resolution and that it all makes sense where it's coming from. I don't want to just say that we're taking it out. I think it needs to still be very clear where, if we've committed to honoring that for 5 years,
Yeah, we are.
okay.
All we're doing is, it's not going through a grant, it's going through the budget request.
So did our resolution, was our resolution just said that what? I don't have it in front of me.
Nor do I.
Right. So I just want to make sure that we didn't agree to something in a resolution with all of council to not do what we said we were going to do. Does that make sense? Just to confirm it. So I just said, let's just defer that one little line item.
just park it.
And then we can come back and look at that in the next meeting to make sure that process-wise and
Yeah.
what we've said is clear. We don't want another ball dropped, Your Worship.
Yeah, I don't think we were that specific that it would show. We made sure that we would pay the rent. So if it doesn't say in the resolution that it has to go through grants, which I don't think it does, it can be passed through our operating grant to Kerry. That's what I was saying. We're still, like, Betty, their budget is going from 985,000 to 1.25 million. Dan, what's their budget in capital going to? It's $1 million this year, and next year it's $4 million. Like, we're pretty good partners.
I 100% agree. I just think that, again, it's like we're not going to have to, if in 4 years, 2 years, we aren't in this room, that somewhere someone can pull something, and it's very clearly understood where things are what the deal is.
I can tell you what the resolution.
Betty, go. Betty?
Can I read the resolution?
Yes,
So
please.
that council reiterates to Kerry that they have been given the fiduciary responsibility to operate the complex in a business-like manner, and in doing so, should ensure that all tenants and users are being treated fairly and equitably, and that the city will enter into an agreement directly with Kerry on the terms and conditions of this space after December of 2023 on behalf of the Seniors Active Living Centre in the amount of $15,000 annually for 20 years, and that the Seniors Active Living Centre will be treated by Kerry Management as a paying tenant by virtue of this agreement.
What I'm saying, that's going through our operating grant of $1.25 million. That's where it's going through. It's not, it doesn't specify it comes out of grants.
No, I know, I heard that. So it can come out of that and come out of the grant, but then it's going to be $15,000 less on whatever their operating grant.
Well, no, hopefully they incorporated that in their budget. Right? Because we didn't specify. I'm just following I knew it wasn't in grants. I didn't want to be that specific. We did say we'll pay the rent. We're paying the rent through our contribution.
Okay, yep, then I would take it out of this line, but I think we need to make sure council knows that we've done that.
And they also know better.
And again, just to confirm, that's the line item on the grant request, the Kerry SALC grant number, not the Seniors Active Living, blah, 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 which is a separate request. Betty?
Kerry have sent us an invoice for $15,000 plus HST for their rent and common area costs. Yes.
But we just respond. We gave it to you in our grant, our operating grant. But
I don't think that was the unwritten, I get what you're saying. Technically, it's written, we
Okay.
can do it.
So
I think
we-
that needs to be communicated.
Okay, here's how to do it. Reduce the 1.25 million by 15,000 plus the HST, send the check. Pretty simple.
Fair?
it.
I understand that. We might want to just communicate that.
Dan, you look like you wanted the mic in there. Oh, okay, let's continue on. Can we move to 6C? FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, funding for new Brackley building report. Betty French.
Yes, so we have, back in September of 2021, we began the process of applying for some funding through the Green Municipal Fund of FCM, and we have received notification that that funding has been approved in the amount of $714,110 as a grant and $4.76 million as a loan, and that is to go towards funding of the net zero Brackley building. We can choose if the loan is 10 years or 20 years. They gave us interest rates in January that are listed there, 4.3 for 10 years, 4.57 for 20 years. Those are just a little bit less than what our current, our most recent long-term debt is, so that is a benefit to the city to get that slightly reduced rate. Now, those are January rates. When we actually sign the agreement, they'll be whatever the current rates are. At the moment, we're suggesting that we go with 10 years. And there's a little bit of information there as to how this funding works towards the building. There was originally a $6.55 million capital budget approval in 2023. To date, there has been 6.1 spent on the building. This 714,000 will go towards that budget and will result in a net savings to the city of what the original budgeted amount was. So one of the main purposes of this is for a recommendation to go forward to approve this funding and in particular the $4.7 million loan, which will be at a cost to the city.
Betty, did I hear you say the recommendation was on the 10-year rate? Is that?
Yes.
All right. Good. Okay.
Great job. Thank you very much. I'll pass it on to the environmental sustainability and public works folks because they're the ones who did all the work on this. I'm just I'm just the messenger.
All right. Thank you, Betty. 6D, tenders, RFPs, RFQs, up to just go through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is our monthly listing of open tenders and unawarded tenders. So some are, they give a listing there as to when they were posted and when they closed. But if they have not yet been awarded, then they're on this list. So there's quite a number of items on there.
Yeah. Just on the design build on the electric buses, it opened and deadline April 18, 24. I'm just kind of remembering some discussion around that. Understand it's probably limited, maybe market as to the type of bids you might expect for that kind of a project or that kind of a. Is that, anybody have any knowledge of that or what they might expect in terms of uptake for, I mean, it's a fairly large project for us. Any sense of that, Betty?
This is one that has not been posted on our website because it went out to just 3 companies because they had earlier done a request for expression of interest. So the tender only went out to the 3 companies that had expressed interest earlier. So you are correct that there is a limited involvement in that one.
Just ask one question.
Councillor Drown?
It's just for my own curiosity. Has other bigger cities turned right to electric buses? You know, some of the things you'll read down in the States, the electric buses weren't ideal. And I'm just wondering, like, is any bigger communities, would anybody know if you know, they're going all electric buses, are they working out or anything like that? Would anybody know that? I know it's not a finance, it's just money, but
Jessica.
I just didn't know where we're going with that, or, you know, if other communities had, you know, great success on that or not, or. maybe.
I concur with Councillor McCabe's comment. That's something that would have gone through the Environment and Sustainability Committee.
In Council Drawn.
Yep.
When Nova was down with their electric bus, I think it was late fall. Matthew was there, Mike Cassidy's son, and I said, Matthew, what do you think? And he said, we're not rushing into it. We will maybe take two. We're watching other communities and what they're doing with the electric buses. Plus, we still have to build a shed, a transit shed. So that transit shed is very important in electrification. Because of cold winters, we can't store these buses outside. They'll charge better if they're inside a transit shed. So, yeah, they're not, I think T3 is guiding us along, and I think we're taking a much more slower approach.
Okay.
I think that's a good way to go.
And I agree with that, because some of the papers that you read, everything was to go green was a great idea, and then after a year or two, there's a lot of issues coming up. So I'm just wondering, we're going to build this, how far are we going to go in without kind of seeing the line? But they would know,
Yeah.
of course, so if long as we're following their advice, that'd be great.
No, I think they're top of it. They're on top of it. And
Perfect.
if there's one person that uses the microscopic lens, that's Mike Cassidy when it comes to the transit. And he can tell you that with the school buses, they bought all these electric buses, but they didn't set up the infrastructure at the schools to charge them when they're not being used. So that's been causing some issues. And I think that Cassidy's onto it.
Just continue and on, just, yeah, on the top of page 44, entry door replacements, City of Charlottetown owned facilities. Anyway, canceled, prices come in too high, there's only one bid. I'm just kind of flashing back to the budget process and some of the presentations. Would that be, do you know, wasn't there doors or something for Eastlink Center or Cary or any, do you know, Betty, if I'm close on that?
I'm not aware of this being for Eastlink. I would have thought it was for us, but I don't have the details about that.
Okay, well, that's fine.
I'd say Eastlink would be doing
Mayor
their own
Brown?
tendering, wouldn't they,
Or-
Philip?
I don't know. I have a question. Communication
Go ahead.
project, value for money audit. Betty, we only got one bid. It's communication project value for money audit, closed on the 28th. You received only one bid. Do you have that number at your fingertips, or no, you don't?
Okay,
That'll be coming up at the next meeting, right?
yeah, okay, but we will see that number. And I'm thinking Mayor Brown, or if anyone else around the table knows, is that a limited market as well as to who might be skilled to do that work?
Correct.
Yeah. Just if I could go back up, CAO annual performance evaluations. I'm understanding this to be there was three replies to our RFP. Is that right? CAO annual performance evaluation closed April 4th, and there's three. Any idea? Can you share any range on what those were? Numerically, financially?
No, I don't have that offhand.
End up going through the Human Resources
Okay.
Committee.
Yep.
Yep,
They would-
great.
They'd send it up to council.
Yeah, drive on, yep. Okay, stay in your lane, I guess, that's the thing. All right, how we doing? Good. Okay. Anything else on the RFP or is that the question, Betty, on? Okay, if we're good with that, we can go to 6E. Monthly financial statements, capital project year-to-date data. which, anyway, I think you'll see and probably have already perused. Good information coming down to the end. I'm up, I get, to what you have in front of you, committee, but I'm on, looking at page 48 of the digital copy. That's sorry, 11 month, then the next one is I'm on page 50. Not that you gotta go there, but page 50, which is the March 31st, 2024 preliminary, kind of 12 months, which, I kind of zeroed in a little bit myself. Anyway, I don't, any comments, questions, trends?
Eddie, so if we look at it, what's your best guess for a projected surplus? You're down to, for the 12 months ending March 31st. So you have the number, oh, you're going right back to the budget.
Well,
We spent a lot of time going through the forecast in the budget book, and I don't have any information yet that would lead me to differ from the numbers that are in there, seeing as we're only April the 10th. So I would still expect to have quite a few March invoices coming through. There are still some year-end accruals to work on, like payroll in particular. I know there's some more revenue still coming in. For instance, the municipal capital expenditure grant right here is current year to date is 1.5 million. I know yesterday Tamara walked over the third quarter MCEG grant claim, which was $1.3 million. So she took that over to the province. So that would be additional revenue there. Plus, there's the fourth quarter yet to be done, and until we see the final invoices for capital, we don't know how much that would be. That grant is 10% of whatever we have spent on capital. And those are some of the invoices that likely have not come in just yet. Certainly, as you buy various goods throughout the year, usually the invoice comes with your goods, but if they're working on a project, they would bill sometime after the month end. So there are still various things to come through. This is based on what's gone through our accounting software so far. So for the city, it has a surplus of $6.6 million. Our forecast was 4.3. I would say 4.3 is the best I can give you right now. Water and sewer, it may be a little bit different. I'm not sure why this number changes so much, but at the moment, we have water and sewer operating revenue of 17 million, whereas in our forecast, it was 15 million. That's $2 million higher. I don't at the moment have an answer for that. The expenses are tracking about the same as they were in the forecast, but it may end up that water and sewer is higher than we were forecasting. But again, we have lots of
No.
year-end work to do still.
Could I just, so Betty, look, I admire your number crunching. So as of the end of February 29th, I'm looking on page 48.
I had moved on to page 50 and 51 as our chair had suggested.
Okay. Because the numbers look good there too, Betty. Like, the numbers are looking good everywhere. Betty, just a couple of quick questions. So the agreement that we have with the province, ALC on the Racino and police and fire, did we get that payment this year?
Not yet.
Okay, so that could be forthcoming.
That, yes. Now, I was checking back on that this afternoon, and last year we invoiced that in December. It does not appear that we've invoiced it yet, and I'm, you're saying, do we get that? So I'm not sure if we normally would just receive it or if we invoice for it, but I know that's one that's on the table for getting an agreement for. That's one that's kind of hasn't necessarily had a formal agreement, a written agreement, I should say. But yes, that one's not in there yet.
So now, I just want to go to the tax overpayment, the 3.2. Where is that in the budget? Where do we're paying on a monthly basis, right? 140,000, isn't it? 108?
Yes, they pay us less by that amount
Yeah,
every
but we
month.
have to account for it.
Just,
Do we not?
They just started taking payments off, I believe it was this month. That is in the liability section of our balance sheet, so it doesn't show up here at all.
Okay.
It shows up separately as due back to the province.
In the audited statements, is that when we see it, or when you give a financial statement on the update, let's say semi-annual update? Is that when we'll see it?
Yes.
The-
Yes,
the
it'll be
accumulated.
included in the liability section of
And
the audited financial statements.
Did
yes.
we ever ask the province how this ever happened? It must have fell under municipal affairs or finance, and there must have been someone or management that made a miscalculation. I just want to find out, like, someone has to, the finger has to point somewhere. I know if it happened here in City Hall, they'd all be pointing at Councillor Duran or myself, nobody else. But I'm just trying to find out, is there any way we can find out, or is that too big of a question to ask? Dan? Oh,
Dan?
I can certainly provide some background. I was at the province at the time it happened. The tax installments are handled through Taxation and Property Records, Department of Finance. They have a pretty lean administrative team. There were some changes in personnel, some issues there. But I do, feel that this really is a non-issue for the city. Yes, we received more money than we should have for a period of time, and we're due to pay that back to the province because they didn't collect that much revenue on our behalf. That being said, they've given us terms. As an administration, we should really have an awareness of what our revenue, what it should be. And we've budgeted last year to know what our revenue is. We've budgeted this year to know what our revenue is. So really, that's just sound financial management, knowing what it should be. I guess, playing the devil's advocate, if we were short $3 million, we would be going looking for that $3 million from the province. If we were short paid $3 million beyond what they had collected on our behalf. So it really is, it wasn't an administrative error, but every year there is an estimate made in terms of what the assessments are and what the tax collected will be. It's done twice a year. They do a preliminary estimate. It's revised through the fiscal year when they have a little more up-to-date estimate of how assessments have changed. So it is a bit of a moving target, but we base our budget forecast this year, and I think Betty did last year, based on the assessment roll. So we know what our taxable assessments are, we know what our tax rates are, so we can calculate that math. I think what didn't happen the year prior, before Betty's tenure, is we didn't do the math to say, look, we should be getting a check for $4 million, but we got a check for $4,200,000, and we just didn't do that math. Or maybe it was done, and they knew that in fact we were being overpaid, and nobody said anything. The province was made aware that some of the municipalities knew they were getting more than they should have been. They notified them, and that's they just said, fine, we'll sort it out at the end of the year. But it did result in a fairly big overpayment to the city. So that's I think the long and the short of the story.
so, Mr. Chair, I don't think it is a non-issue. Luckily, we were fiscally prudent in how we did our numbers. I think we did a pretty good job, but I think the chair of this committee and I discussed it. We didn't detect it, but it was detected by the province. Someone erred in sending out additional money. So luckily, we had lots of cushion there. If we were really tight and then had to budget for 12 months at, did you say $108,000 a month? Chair? Like, that would have hit us hard. So, again, to me, lost revenue is an issue. More revenue is good news. So I don't agree with the non-issue. I just want to make, like, I keep asking myself, something happened, and Was it on our part? We didn't catch it. I'm sure if someone else was here, maybe they could have, but that's passé. So I just wanted to clarify that from my perspective, Danny.
And, I hear what you're saying. I guess I think the reality is that the city budgeted for the revenue that they should have received, not for what they actually did receive. So I think that's why the city wasn't left short, is because the budget planned to receive, if it was $4 million, that's what they budgeted for, and they planned their expenditures that way.
Yeah.
So the auditors at year end, when they come in and they looked at the revenue received, they knew that there was an overpayment, so it was set up as an account payable. So in the end, we got the revenue that we were due to receive, and we spent according to that plan. So
Yeah.
the fact that we were receiving monthly installments, more than that, it just provided with us some positive cash flow that we probably didn't have to borrow some additional funds on our line of credit. So it didn't impact our operating results. It just impacted our cash flow positively for the time that we were getting more than we should have, and negatively subsequently. But the good news is that for us, it ends up being a net positive, because we weren't paying interest costs on additional overdraft while we were being overpaid, and now we're just catching up. So
Yeah. Just one point of clarification, Betty. So do the auditors, MRSB, check our books every month, or do they just come in once a year to do our books? The audit. I think they only come in once a year, correct?
They do come in twice a year. They're scheduled to come in next month to do what they call the interim audit, or their systems audit. So they're coming in to review our accounting systems and doing various testing to test our systems. But when they look at our year-end balances, they will do that at a later date.
So did the auditors just verify that there was an overpayment, or did they discover it before government told us? Do you remember?
No, they wouldn't have discovered it before the government told us. They told us in February of last year, so that was
Okay.
long before the auditors came in.
And just a last question, when we go under tax, we had this discussion the other day, property tax, we charge for non-commercial 67 cents on the $100 assessment, correct? And if you look at the MOU from 2017 to 2022, the provincial share was 58 cents. So are we getting 67 cents plus 58 cents, or 59? Which is $1.26?
59.2.
Okay, so let's say 59 plus 67, that's $1.26. Is that what we're taking in for taxes?
That's correct.
Wow. You're back, so we haven't reduced the tax. It was reduced by the province's contribution to the city, because back in 2001 to 2006, it was 66 cents for the province. So taxes have gone down, right? That's what it tells me. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Betty. And continuing on that, we go on the financials. Capital projects, year to date, another good metric here that, again, Betty and group have
Good job.
prepared. Just that, at a high level, you can see year to date on the various projects, what was budgeted, what's been spent. Any particular questions? See any red lights? Mayor Brown?
No.
Get your red light, huh? No. All right, we'll go to item 7, introduction of new business.
I have a question. If I'd like to put a motion, just to get clarification, maybe at our next meeting, just where our procurement bylaw, where that sits, and when you think we might be able to get a look at that. Thank you.
You're a mind reader, Councillor Cave, I said it's going to have it on the agenda till we dealt with it, and I was just going to ask that, if we could have an update on it. As we know, we've allocated money in our budget for that process, so just a little update. The other thing I'm kind of wondering about, if we could sometime the next meeting or two, maybe just have a bit of a synopsis from Betty and the team, CFO, on the budgeting process this year. Just a bit of a, commentary, what was good, what was bad. I know there's, I guess there'd be a council maybe feedback into that. I'm just wondering if there's some kind of process where we can talk to one another as a council, and then as a operations side, just to, in advance, instead of, a year goes by quick, and then the next thing we're rushing into a budget period. But if there can be some kind of, if that's a fair question or comment, or, go ahead.
Yeah, certainly, just to give you a little background in terms of what our plan going forward is we do have a meeting planned on Thursday with the department heads to do kind of a lessons learned from the budgeting process. What worked, what didn't, what the challenges were, what some of the opportunities might be. We're also going to do a survey both for council and for staff who were involved in the budget process, same type questions. What was your role in the process? What worked? What didn't work? What changes would you like to see moving forward? I think Betty has a number of good ideas in terms of how we can improve things going forward. But we would very much like to collaborate with council to see how we can do better next time, and do better for both council and residents in terms of participating in the process and understanding the process. We're also going to do a debrief with staff to just kind of give them a budget 101 to give them a little background in terms of how the process unfolded, how it impacts their day-to-day work, and just to try to do a high-level overview and allow them to ask some questions. So we and Betty and her team certainly want to continue to learn and to improve the process. So we'll involve council in that as well.
No, and I think that'd be great, Danny and Betty, and I know Mayor Brown's got a mic on there. I just speaking from being one of 4 new councillors, it's still a kind of a learning experience for me, and talking about lanes and operations and things, and then I know there's a good group of senior councillors here, and they've been through, many budgets, and so it gets to be a pretty charged time, and a lot of emotion, and a lot of so anything we can do to kind of improve those communications and how we do it in our process. I'm certainly all in favor of trying to be a catalyst and supporting that, and if we get out ahead of it early, maybe we can make some improvements, and that both sides, council and operations, can be better off for that effort. Thank you.
New business. Mr. Chair, I just want to give notification that this is what we received for the budget. That's why when I was asking about agreements and grants, if I go to our detailed budget, I can find that information. I know myself, Councillor Bernard, and other councillors may want it, but I'd like to have a little more detail. It may take a little bit of work to get done, but it's a great document to have, because, as I said, when it comes to where the money is, where the money's going, this is my Bible. So I just want to ask that it's a more detailed budget that we receive. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank the committee and staff for your time, and item 8 is adjournment. Motion? Councilor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Drown. Thank you. Good
you, sir.
evening.
Merci beaucoup.